Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something today, something big, something that always gets people thinking, lost
Hmm.
civilizations, these like hints and clues and whispers, of these cultures so advanced, so different from what we expect that it like rewrites history, you know.
It really does.
We've got some amazing stuff lined up today, really cool sources, all about these locations and mysteries that just challenge everything we think we know.
Hmm.
And we're talking all over the world, from the Kalahari Desert,
Wow.
places like Doggerland, which we'll get into. We're going on a journey, continents, time, millennia. I mean, what if these seemingly isolated incidents, like, are actually connected,
Right.
like pieces of a bigger hidden story of, us, of human civilization?
It is. It is. It's a question that, has fascinated researchers for centuries, literally centuries.
Yeah.
And I think what's so compelling about these lost civilizations is that it forces us to really look at what we know, right?
Yeah.
And think about how maybe it's incomplete,
Yeah.
Maybe even wrong, fundamentally flawed. Like, wow.
Okay, so let's pick a spot. Let's start with a location. Maybe not the first place you think of when you think of, advanced civilizations, but the Kalahari Desert
Okay.
in southern Africa.
Mm.
You think vast, dry, arid, right?
Yeah, very much so.
But what if it wasn't always like that?
Right.
What if it was once like a paradise,
Fertile.
a fertile region that could support like a whole civilization,
Mm-hmm.
a thriving civilization? Think about this. Back in 1885, an explorer named Guillermo Farini, he claimed he found ruins. Like, describe these structures that look like pyramids.
It's like pyramids in the Kalahari.
Of course, people were skeptic. I mean, nobody else could find them,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So for the longest time, his story was kind of dismissed. Oh, he made it up, fabrication. But then, satellite imagery, it revealed something really intriguing.
Hilarious.
It started to show these potential structures
Oh, wow.
under the sand, buried.
Destruction. Yeah. And, we have to be careful. Satellite imagery can be tricky, right? It's not like
Yeah.
we're seeing perfect outlines of pyramids or anything.
Right.
More like these subtle variations in the terrain
Okay.
that could indicate something man-made below.
So not proof positive, but enough to be like,
Makes you curious.
yeah, like, whoa, hold on.
What if?
What if? What kind of like geological processes could turn the Kalahari from like this potential, Garden of Eden
Right.
into this desert?
Well, you have to think about climate change, right? That's a huge force, and it's been shaping our planet forever.
For millennia.
For millennia, yeah. I mean, look at the Sahara.
The Sahara.
Once upon a time, that was a lush green place. So it's possible, totally possible, that the Kalahari went through something similar, like slowly drying out
Over thousands of years.
over thousands of years. Exactly.
Okay, so that's natural, but is there any way that humans, played a role in that?
Ugh, that's the question, isn't it? Did we mess things up? Some researchers, they believe that, ancient civilizations could have accidentally,
Accidentally?
contributed to desertification, deforestation, bad farming practices, things like that.
Like they brought it on themselves.
It's possible. I mean, it makes you think, right?
It really does.
About the choices we're making today and what kind of legacy we'll leave behind.
It's a heavy thought.
It is.
Okay. Let's move on to another location. One shrouded in mystery, for sure. Tartaria.
Tartaria, yeah.
And I gotta say, this one, even for me, it's a rabbit hole.
It is.
You won't find it on any map, modern map.
Right, exactly. And that's part of what makes it so fascinating, I think, to a lot of people.
Yeah.
The whole idea of a Tartarian empire, controversial, to put it mildly.
Yeah?
Mainstream historians are like, nope, that's just people misunderstanding old maps,
Right.
But there's this whole online community, and they see Tartaria as evidence of this vast, advanced civilization.
Like way advanced.
Technologically advanced, way ahead of its time, that was, get this, deliberately erased.
Erased from history, wiped clean.
Wow, okay. So, like, how?
They point to maps, old maps from like the 16th to 19th centuries
Yeah.
that label huge parts of Europe and Asia Tartaria.
Tartaria.
Yeah, and they show cities, kingdoms that don't match up with what we know now about history.
Okay, so are these maps just wrong?
That's the big question.
Right.
I mean, map making back then,
Yeah.
not exactly a precise science. Borders changed, names changed, and there was a lot of guesswork going on.
Especially, far off places.
Especially, yeah, unexplored territory.
All right.
But even then, there are these anomalies on these Tartarian maps.
Like what?
Things that are really hard to explain away.
Give me an example.
Some researchers say these differences could be because of like a cataclysmic event,
Okay.
a massive event, and they call it a mud flood.
A mud flood.
Yeah. that supposedly reshaped the world, like in the 1800s, wiped out this whole Tartarian civilization, buried their cities in mud.
Buried in mud. That sounds like a movie. It does, right. And I mean, look, there's no scientific evidence for a global flood like that.
Recently.
Recently, yeah.
Okay.
But it is interesting to think about how natural disasters,
Oh, yeah.
whether it's a flood, an earthquake, a volcano, they can change things. I mean, they can really impact civilizations, sometimes leading to their decline, even disappearance.
Right. I mean, think of Pompeii,
Exactly.
volcanic ash, buried.
So Atlantis, swallowed by the sea, right. These stories, they remind us that nature is powerful. It can reshape the world, sometimes in catastrophic ways.
Wow. Yeah, it can.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's go to a site that's got archaeologists just scratching their heads. Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. Now, you've probably heard of it. I mean, it's been in the news, making headlines. It's this huge archaeological discovery that changes how we think about early civilization.
It does.
But let's go deeper, not just the basic stuff. What are some of the more interesting, less talked about aspects of this place? I'm with you. What's fascinating about Göbekli Tepe isn't just how old it is,
Yeah.
It's estimated to be like 12,000 years old.
12,000 years.
Which is older than Stonehenge,
Really?
older than the pyramids.
It's way older.
It really is.
Yeah.
But it's also how sophisticated it is. These massive stone pillars,
Pillars.
some of them weigh up to 50 tons.
50 tons.
I know, right? And they're carved with all these animal figures and symbols, and they're arranged in these intricate circular structures.
So how did people back then, who we assume were just hunter-gatherers,
Right, exactly.
how did they build something so, I mean, it's monumental.
It's mind-boggling, and it's one of the biggest mysteries about Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah.
It challenges what we think we know, right? The usual story is that agriculture settled life came before these big, complex buildings.
Right, like you had to be settled to build big.
Exactly.
But Göbekli Tepe flips the script.
It does. It suggests maybe these communal spaces, these ritual spaces.
Places to gather.
Right. Places to share beliefs. Maybe that was a driving force behind settling down in the first place.
That's a fascinating idea. So what were they gathering for
That's the question.
at Göbekli Tepe?
What were those beliefs? Well, that's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Some researchers think the carvings, those animals on the pillars, they might be clues
Clues to what?
about their beliefs, their rituals. There are bulls, foxes, snakes, birds, all kinds of creatures.
All kinds.
Yeah, and some of them look like they're moving, interacting.
Oh, wow.
Some scholars even think these carvings could be constellations
Whoa.
representing the stars. Like they had a really advanced understanding of astronomy.
So Göbekli Tepe, an ancient observatory?
Maybe it's
Maybe.
possible.
That's so cool.
And if it is, it adds a whole other layer of complexity to this already incredible site.
This is why I love doing these deep dives. Every answer just leads to more questions. Okay, so speaking of questions, there's another mystery about Göbekli Tepe. Why was it buried? Like deliberately buried? Around 10,000 years ago.
That's the one.
That's the one.
It's one of the biggest head scratchers. You build this amazing site, then you bury it.
Centuries later.
Centuries later, why?
What are people saying? What are the theories?
Well, a few. Some archaeologists say it was ritualistic, like it served its purpose, time to
Yes.
move on, so they bury it ceremoniously.
Okay.
Others say it was protection, maybe from invaders.
Oh, yeah.
Or even the elements. And then there are those who say it was deliberate concealment, like hiding the secrets of Göbekli Tepe.
Okay, now that is a little spooky.
A little bit, right.
Yeah.
Secrets so big they had to hide it from the world.
Makes you wonder what else is out there. Buried, waiting.
Oh, it's a tantalizing thought, isn't it?
It really is.
And it brings us back to that question we started with. What if all these discoveries, these glimpses into these lost civilizations are part of a much bigger puzzle?
A puzzle that, if we could solve it, would change everything.
Everything!
I'm hooked. Let's keep going.
Absolutely. Now let's go to a place that's both familiar and lost. Doggerland. A landmass, submerged now, that once connected Britain to mainland Europe. You might be thinking, hold on, wasn't this about advanced civilizations? What's so advanced about a piece of land that sank? But there's more to this story. A lot more. You see, for a long time, people thought Doggerland was just this, sparsely populated area
Okay.
with nomadic hunter-gatherers just kind of wandering around.
Right.
But new discoveries, they're painting a totally different picture.
Okay, I'm listening. What kind of discoveries? Give me the good stuff.
So with sonar technology, right, and underwater archaeology, it's getting so much better.
Yeah.
We're starting to see what life was like in Doggerland
Heck, or the flood.
before it went under. And we're finding settlements, tools, even art
Really?
that hints at a much more settled, sophisticated culture than we thought.
So not just nomads, but like actual communities
Exactly.
with their own culture, their own way of life.
And here's the really interesting part. Some researchers think Doggerland could have been a hub.
A hub? Like a crossroads, where people from mainland Europe and Britain, they came together, they interacted, exchanged ideas, a real melting pot.
That makes sense. Geographically, I mean, it's like a land bridge.
Exactly, and that's what makes the Starega slide, that landslide that caused the tsunami that wiped out Doggerland, so tragic.
Yeah.
It's not just a lost land, it's like lost potential, you know?
It's hard to imagine a tsunami that big.
It's huge,
Mhm.
powerful enough to just erase a whole landmass.
Wow.
Think about it. The terror, the chaos, those waves crashing in, swallowing everything.
Must have been terrifying.
Devastating. And it happens so fast. Hours, maybe even minutes.
That's crazy.
It's haunting. Makes you think about what was lost down there, you know.
The stories, the knowledge.
Everything. It's a reminder that even the most advanced civilizations, they're fragile. Nature can change everything in an instant.
Yeah, powerful forces out there. Okay, let's switch gears again. Let's go underground.
Literally underground. Derinkuyu, this underground city in Turkey. Try describing this place to someone who's never heard of it.
It's wild.
It's like something out of a movie. A whole city, underground, big enough for 20,000 people.
20,000.
Ventilation shafts, wells for water, kitchens, stables for animals, even a school.
I know. It's mind-boggling.
It's unbelievable.
The sheer scale of it, the engineering, it shows how ingenious those people were.
Yeah.
And we tend to think of underground cities as these dark, cramped places, but during Kuyu, it was meant for the long haul.
So not just a quick hideout.
No, people could live there comfortably.
For a while.
Maybe months, years, even.
Really? Why would anyone need to live underground that long? What were they hiding from?
That's the question, isn't it? The most common theory. Early Christians hiding from persecution.
Okay.
Makes sense. Back then, that region, it was a mix of religions, empires, lots of conflict.
A safe haven.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Some researchers think Derinkuyu might be much older.
Older. Like how much older?
Thousands of years older, maybe. Predating Christianity.
Whoa, really? That changes everything.
It does. It opens up all these possibilities.
Like what?
Some researchers think it might have been a refuge from some kind of catastrophe.
Like a natural disaster, an earthquake, a volcano.
Maybe. Or something even bigger. A comet impact, maybe a solar flare.
Okay, now that is getting out there.
I know, it sounds like science fiction.
It does.
But we know these things have happened in the past, and ancient civilizations, they were very aware of the cosmos.
The stars.
Right. So is it so crazy to think they might have built underground cities to survive an apocalypse?
It's a thought. I mean, it connects back to that idea of shared knowledge that we were talking about earlier.
Yes, doesn't it?
Okay, let's jump forward in time a bit to a more recent discovery. Zakiku, this 3,400-year-old city that popped up out of the Tigris River in Iran.
Oh, yeah, during that drought in 2022.
Proof that lost civilizations aren't just ancient history. They're still out there, waiting to be found.
Zakiku is an amazing find. It gives us a look into the Mitanni Empire, this powerful kingdom in Mesopotamia during the Bronze Age.
Okay.
But the thing is, we don't know a lot about the Mitanni.
Really?
We know they were there, they were important, but we don't have many written records from them.
So Zakiku could fill in the blanks.
It could, and it's already showing us some really interesting stuff. Palaces, temples, a huge wall around the city. And the best part, they found clay tablets.
Clay tablets.
Tons of them. They could be records, letters, maybe even stories.
So we could be reading the words of people who lived in Zaku over 3,000 years ago.
It's incredible, right? A direct link to the past.
Wow.
And these tablets could help us understand their language, their culture, everything.
It's amazing how much we still don't know.
It really is. And it shows that history isn't set in stone.
It's constantly changing.
Evolving as we make new discoveries.
It's like putting together a huge puzzle, one piece at a time.
And we've only just begun.
Okay, so we've been all over the place. Deserts, underwater, underground.
Quite a journey.
We've seen hints of these lost civilizations.
Yeah.
Each one challenging what we think we know. But what does it all mean? What can we learn from these glimpses into these forgotten worlds?
Well, one thing that really jumps out at me is that that idea of advanced knowledge, especially in astronomy,
Astronomy.
it pops up again and again, you know? We see it at Göbekli Tepe, those possible astronomical alignments.
Right.
And of course, at the pyramids,
Pyramids.
it makes you think, right? Like, what if these ancient cultures, they all had this shared understanding of the cosmos, something that we've maybe, lost touch with?
Like they were looking to the stars for answers,
Right.
for knowledge, for guidance, for a sense of where they fit in this whole vast universe.
Exactly. And they weren't just observing, they were incorporating that knowledge into everything. Their buildings, their rituals, their whole way of seeing the world.
Amazing.
And it wasn't just astronomy, right? Think about Kuyu, that incredible engineering, or Zakiku, the way that city was planned out. These weren't, simple societies. They had skills, knowledge that we're only just starting to rediscover.
It makes you question that whole idea of progress. Like we think of history as this straight line from primitive to
It was
advanced.
a linear progression.
But what if it's not that simple? What if there were these periods of huge advancement in the past, followed by decline,
Right.
or even, complete collapse?
It's a humbling thought, for sure, to think that maybe we're not as special or as advanced as we like to believe.
Yeah.
Maybe there were civilizations back then that were just as good as us, maybe even better in some ways.
So if that's true, what can we learn from them? What did they know that we don't? What mistakes did they make that we can avoid?
Big questions, right? And I think the only way we can even start to answer them is by keeping an open mind. We
Yeah.
have to keep exploring, excavating, studying these lost civilizations. We have to be willing to question everything, even the things we think we know for sure.
Challenge those assumptions.
Exactly. And be open to the possibility that the past is way more complex, way more interesting than we ever imagined.
I think one of the biggest things I've learned from all this is that history isn't just about the past. It's about us, It's about understanding who we are, where we came from, and what we're capable of.
That's a great way to put it.
By studying these lost civilizations, we're not just digging up old stuff. We're digging into our own humanity.
Beautifully said. And I think it shows us that the search for knowledge, it never really ends. There's always more to discover, more to learn, more to question. And that's what makes this whole journey so exciting.
Well, on that note, we've come to the end of our deep dive into these lost civilizations. But like you said, it's just the beginning. The conversation keeps going. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
What mysteries are you still thinking about? What questions are you left with? Keep exploring, keep digging, and keep those minds open, because who knows what secrets are still out there, just waiting to be discovered.
Waiting to rewrite history.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the mysteries of the past.